The night was dark and angry over the red deserts of Mars Edge Colony. The wind screamed across the metal roofs, carrying dust and sparks from a distant crash. In the middle of that chaos walked Dr. Evan Cole, a tired man with gray in his beard and a heart too heavy for his age. He was an engineer once famous for building rescue drones, now working alone on the edge of civilization. His scanner blinked again on a faint heat signal coming from the old mining zone where the alien ship had fallen hours ago. Evan climbed over broken rocks and twisted metal until he saw the wreck and a massive alien craft half buried in the red sand. It was still smoking, glowing faintly blue from its cracked energy core. Everyone in the colony had seen it fall, but no one dared go near it. Alien technology was forbidden by the Galactic Council. Anyone who touched it without permission could be charged with interference with superior species. But Evan didn't care. Something inside him couldn't ignore the thought that maybe, just maybe, someone in there needed help. He covered his face with a mask and stepped inside the wreck. The air smelled like burnt metal and blood. The walls were alive with flickering lights, strange symbols, and the sound of power leaking from damaged circuits. He moved carefully, flashlight in hand, calling out softly, "Hello? Anyone alive?" His voice echoed back through the hollow ship, but no answer came. Only the wind howling through the broken hull. Then he heard it, a weak, trembling sound. Not a machine, not an echo, a cry. Small, fragile, like a child trying to breathe through tears. Evan froze. He followed the sound deeper into the wreck, stepping over fallen panels and pools of blue liquid that shimmered like oil. The cry grew louder. It came from behind a half-crushed door. He pushed the metal aside with all his strength, and what he saw made his breath stop. There, hidden between broken wires and alien glass, was a small creature, no more than a child. Its skin was gray with patches of rough scales. Its eyes were huge and golden, filled with fear. Its arms were thin, shaking, its body covered in strange markings. One of its legs was hurt, bleeding with thick silver fluid. It looked at Evan, terrified, and tried to crawl away, but it was too weak. Evan's heart ached. He had seen pain before, in soldiers, in machines, in people, but never like this. The little one wasn't just injured, it was abandoned. Around it lay alien symbols painted in red. Words Evan couldn't read, but one piece of metal near the child caught his eye. A nameplate, half burnt, written in alien letters and translated below in human text. Defective unit, dispose. He looked down at the creature again, his throat tightening. "They left you here," he whispered. "Left you to die because you were different." The child stared, silent tears rolling down its gray face. Evan slowly took off his gloves, showing empty hands, trying not to frighten it. "It's okay," he said gently. "I'm not going to hurt you." The creature's breathing slowed. It looked at him again, as if trying to decide whether to trust this strange human standing in the ruins of its world. Evan noticed its chest rising unevenly, the air coming in sharp gasps. Without thinking, he picked it up. It was light, far too light, and its skin felt cold like metal under snow. "Easy there," he whispered. "You're safe now." As he stepped out of the wreckage, the storm roared louder. Lightning flashed across the horizon, turning the desert into a sea of fire and shadow. Behind him, the alien ship gave one last groan and collapsed in on itself, disappearing into a crater of dust. Evan ran through the storm, shielding the small alien child with his jacket. He didn't know what the council would say. He didn't even know if this creature could survive on Earth air for long. All he knew was that he couldn't leave it to die. Back at his lab, he placed the child on a warm bed beside the heater. The little one's eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly in the dark. Evan tried a gentle smile. "You're safe here. You can rest now." The child said nothing, only watched him with cautious eyes. It didn't understand his words, but somehow it felt the kindness behind them. Evan looked at the burned nameplate again. Defective unit. The word made him angry. Who decides what's defective? Who decides who deserves to live or die? He gently set the tag down beside the bed. "No one's defective," he said softly, almost to himself. "Not in my world." Outside, the storm began to fade, but a red warning light flashed on Evan's console, a scan alert. The Galactic drones were approaching the crash site, searching for survivors, or what they called illegal rescues. Evan turned off all his lights, staring out into the stormy distance. He knew what would happen if they found out. Helping an alien was a serious crime. but looking at the small creature breathing quietly on the bed, he made a silent promise. "I don't care what laws they made," he said quietly. "You're not going back there. Not ever." As the night deepened, the human and the alien child lay hidden under the red sky. One was a man who had lost faith in humanity. The other, a child who had been rejected by his own kind. Neither knew it yet, but this strange night would change the fate of both, and one day even the fate of the entire galaxy. Morning came slow over Mars' edge. The storm had passed, leaving the red desert quiet and heavy. Inside the small lab on the colony's border, Dr. Evan Cole sat by the bed watching the alien child breathe. For the first time in years, his home wasn't silent. There was the soft sound of another heartbeat beside his own. The child stirred. Its eyes opened, glowing golden in the pale light. It looked around in confusion. The strange metal walls, the soft blanket, the faint smell of human air. Then it saw Evan. Fear flickered in its eyes. It tried to sit up, but pain shot through its leg. A soft cry escaped its lips. Part sound, part vibration. Evan moved closer, raising a hand slowly. "It's okay," he said gently. "You're safe." The child didn't understand the words, but something in Evan's voice calmed it. It blinked slowly, studying his face. His wrinkles, his tired eyes, his careful smile. No cruelty, no disgust, only warmth. Evan brought water in a small metal cup. "Here," he said. The child hesitated, then reached out with trembling fingers. Its skin shimmered faintly under the light. It sipped the water, and then for a brief moment its face softened. That small act of trust made Evan smile, though deep down he knew what danger he was in. He went to his computer and opened a secure communication line to the colony's AI office. "Report from Sector 9, he said quietly. "Found wreckage of unknown origin. One life form," he paused. His eyes moved to the bed where the small alien was watching him. Its golden eyes reflected his face, curious and afraid. Evan hesitated. Then he spoke again. "Life form, deceased. No survivors." There was silence. Then the AI's cold voice replied, "Data logged. Salvage units dispatched. Human presence near alien wreckage unauthorized. Return immediately." Evan closed the line without a word. He turned back to the child, whispering, "You died today, at least on paper." He knew the rules. The Galactic Council forbade humans from keeping alien life forms, especially from advanced races like the Xyrith, the species the child seemed to belong to. Humans were seen as lower life, unfit to raise alien young. If they discovered what he'd done, they wouldn't just take the child. They'd erase him too. Days passed. Evan cared for the child in secret, hiding him whenever patrol drones flew overhead. The boy, for he seemed male, healed slowly. He couldn't speak human words yet, but he learned gestures. When Evan gave him food, he touched his heart and nodded. A silent thank you. Evan decided to call him Kale, short, simple, and human enough to blend in. Kale was curious about everything. He would sit for hours, touching the glowing buttons on machines, mimicking their hums. Sometimes he laughed softly, a strange echoing sound like wind through glass. Other times he sat by the window, staring at the stars, his expression distant and sad. Evan knew that look. It was the look of someone who had lost everything. One night, while Evan repaired an old drone, Kale came close, watching. Evan smiled. "Want to help?" Kale tilted his head, then nodded slightly. Evan handed him a small tool. To his surprise, Kale handled it perfectly, adjusting wires with sharp precision. Within minutes, the broken drone blinked back to life. Evan laughed. "You're a natural engineer." Kyle tilted his head again, not understanding the words, but smiling anyway. For a moment, the lab felt alive again, like the old days when Evan worked with his team before the wars. But behind the warmth was a shadow. Every day he checked the outer sensors. Every day the galactic patrol lines came closer. And every day he lied to himself that they wouldn't find him. Late one evening, as the sun sank behind the red dunes, Kyle found a small mirror on the table. He picked it up, studying his reflection. The gray skin, the scars, the strange lines on his face. His expression changed. He touched his cheek, then turned away, covering his face with his hands. A low, painful sound escaped his throat, almost like a sob. Evan watched quietly. He didn't move closer. He knew what that sound meant. The boy remembered. "Who did this to you?" Evan whispered to himself. Kale didn't answer. He just sat there, shaking slightly, the mirror slipping from his fingers and shattering on the floor. Evan knelt down and picked up the broken pieces. He looked at Cale and said softly, "You're not ugly, Cale. You're different, but different isn't bad." Kyle looked up, his golden eyes wet with tears, not understanding the words but feeling their warmth. For the first time he reached out and touched Evan's hand. That touch was small, but to Evan it felt like a promise. Outside, the sky flickered with distant lights, alien patrols scanning the horizon. In their databases, one report stood out: a Xyreth experimental unit marked defective, missing after crash. Status presumed destroyed, but in a quiet human lab, that defective child was alive, learning, healing, and slowly discovering what it meant to be cared for. And for Dr. Evan Cole, who had lived years believing humans were weak and selfish, this strange alien boy reminded him of something he thought he'd lost long ago: hope. He looked at the sleeping child that night and whispered to himself, "They threw you away because they couldn't see your worth, but I do. You'll never be unwanted again." Outside, the stars glimmered over the silent desert. The galaxy had no idea that a man and a child it had already forgotten were about to change everything, forever. Years passed like whispers across the red sands of Mars' edge. The world forgot the crash, the wreckage, and the small, defective life form that vanished that night. But inside a lonely outpost on the edge of the colony, a quiet miracle grew in secret. Kyle, once a scared, broken child, was no longer small. He was taller now, his skin less gray and more silver blue under the sun. His scars remained, but they no longer looked like marks of shame. They looked like lightning carved into his skin, symbols of survival. And Dr. Evan Cole, the man who once lived alone, now had a reason to wake up every morning. Their home was half lab, half sanctuary. Evan taught Cale everything: how to fix drones, how to read human words, how to understand emotions. Cale learned quickly. He could rebuild a circuit just by watching once. He could memorize entire manuals in a day. But what fascinated him most were humans themselves. He would ask questions in his soft, mechanical-sounding voice. Why do humans cry when they're happy? Why do humans say sorry when they're not wrong? Evan always smiled at those questions. Because our hearts don't always follow logic, Cale. Sometimes they just feel. Cale would nod, thinking deeply. Then feelings are powerful? Yes, Evan said. They're what make us human. Kyle smiled faintly. Then maybe I'm a little human too. Those words made Evan laugh quietly, but inside they filled his chest with warmth. The boy he had once saved was becoming something rare, a bridge between two worlds. But while their bond grew stronger, danger grew closer. Outside, the Galactic patrols had begun sweeping Mars' edge again. Rumors had spread, whispers of an alien life form that had survived the forbidden crash years ago. The Council wanted it back. They said it was a lost prototype, a weapon gone wrong, and they would destroy anyone hiding it. Evan knew the risk. Every time a patrol drone passed overhead, he shut down the power, dimmed the lights, and waited in silence until it left. He taught Cale how to stay hidden, how to mask his energy signals, how to never speak when the sky hummed. But Cale was curious. Too curious. One evening, while Evan was away repairing a mining tower, Cale climbed onto the roof. He looked at the night sky filled with 1,000 stars. He felt small but alive. Somewhere out there were his people, the ones who had called him a defect, who had thrown him away. And yet, part of him still wondered why. Why did they hate him for being different? Why couldn't they see what Evan saw? He reached for the old communication tower, touching the wires, remembering how Evan had taught him to fix it. He wanted to listen to the stars, to hear something, anything, and from the galaxy he'd lost. So he turned it on. The machine crackled to life. Static filled the air. A soft pulse of energy went out into space. Harmless, he thought. He didn't know that signal carried his genetic code. He didn't know that far beyond the solar system, a Xyreth patrol ship suddenly picked up a familiar energy pattern. Signal confirmed, said a cold alien voice. The defective unit is alive. Back on Mars' edge, Cale smiled, unaware of the danger. He heard faint sounds in the static, alien tones like songs from another world. His eyes softened. "Mother?" he whispered, not sure why the word came to him, but the sound faded, and silence returned. When Evan came back, he saw the tower light blinking faintly. "Kyle!" he shouted. "Did you touch this?" Kale froze. "I just wanted to hear the stars." Evan rushed to shut the system down, his hands shaking. "You can't, Kale. They can trace that signal." Kyle stepped back, confused and hurt. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to know if someone missed me." Evan stopped. His anger turned to sadness. He placed a hand on Kale's shoulder. "I understand, son. But if they find you, they'll take you away. And I can't let that happen." Kale lowered his head. "Then I'll hide better." Evan smiled weakly. "No, Kale. We'll hide together." For the next few days, Evan reinforced their security systems. He erased data logs, jammed transmitters, and rebuilt the roof scanners. But deep down, he knew it was too late. That signal was already out there, traveling through the dark, calling attention from the stars. And the ones who had abandoned Kale were coming. Still, life continued quietly for a while. Kale learned to cook human food, badly but proudly. He burned the bread but laughed at the smoke. He played old Earth music on a dusty speaker, humming along even though he didn't understand the words. Sometimes he made up his own, in the strange melodic alien language that Evan couldn't translate. In those moments, it was easy to forget the danger. Evan would sit back watching the boy he had raised, a being of two worlds, and wonder what the future would bring. But one night, a storm came again, louder than before. The power flickered. The radio screamed with static, and through the window Evan saw lights in the sky. Not lightning, not meteors, but ships. 3 of them, sleek and silver, moving like predators across the stars. His heart sank. He turned to Kale and whispered, "They found us." Kale's golden eyes widened. "What do we do?" Evan grabbed his old blaster, his voice calm but cold. "We survive, Kyle, like we always have." Outside, the alien ships descended through the storm, scanning the desert with beams of white fire. Inside, a human and an alien child stood side by side, ready for the night that would test their bond, their courage, and the meaning of family itself. The quiet life they had built was over. The hunters had come for their lost defect, and the galaxy was about to learn what happens when a human decides to protect what others threw away. The sky above Mars' edge was no longer red. It was burning white. 3 alien ships cut through the clouds like blades, their engines screaming across the horizon. The air trembled under their power. Every machine in the colony flickered. Every human heart skipped a beat. Inside his small lab, Dr. Evan Cole stood frozen at the window, watching the lights approach. His old blaster hung at his side, useless against something so advanced. Behind him, Kale watched too, his golden eyes wide, glowing faintly in the darkness. He didn't need to ask who they were. He already knew. "They found me," Kale whispered. His voice shook. "The ones who left me. They're here," Evan turned. "Then we run." Kyle looked confused. "Where can we go?" "There's nowhere they can't see." Evan gave a grim smile. "Then we make them blind." He pulled a lever on the wall. The lab's lights shut off and the whole building dropped underground. A hidden bunker Evan had built years ago, back when he still believed in fear. The doors sealed tight. Only emergency lights remained, bathing them in red shadows. Evan's hands moved fast over the control panel. "I can jam their scanners for a few minutes, maybe less." Kale stepped closer. "Why do you help me, Evan? You could surrender me and live." Evan looked at him, really looked. "Because you're my son," he said softly, "and I don't give up on family." Outside, the alien ships landed with thunderous force. The ground cracked beneath their weight. A voice echoed from above, ring cold, emotionless, amplified through the sky. "To the human colony on Mars' edge. You harbor stolen property of the Zyrith Dominion. Surrender the defective unit immediately or your colony will be erased." The people in the colony panicked. Drones flew overhead, scanning every structure. Soldiers ran, alarms screamed. No one knew what the aliens wanted, only that they were angry. Evan watched from the hidden cameras, his jaw tight. "They're calling you property," he muttered. "Like you're a thing." Kale's expression darkened. "To them I am." He clenched his fists, and for a moment blue light flickered beneath his skin. They're afraid of what I am. Evan glanced at the glowing light, uneasy but amazed. What are you, Kale? Kale hesitated. Something they tried to erase. Before Evan could speak, the bunker shook. A massive explosion tore through the surface above. The aliens had begun searching underground. The roof cracked, dust falling like snow. Evan grabbed a small data chip and handed it to Kale. If I don't make it, Kale interrupted, his voice fierce. Don't say that. We escaped together. Evan smiled sadly. That's exactly what a human would say. The comm system suddenly activated. The alien voice spoke again, closer this time. We know you hear us, human. Do not resist. Return the defective. You cannot protect what was meant to die. Evan slammed the switch off. I'm done listening. He looked at Kale. Can you fight? Kale looked down at his hands. I don't want to hurt anyone. Then fight to protect, Evan said. Not to destroy. They moved through the dark tunnels beneath the lab, the sound of explosions echoing from above. Kale's heartbeat pounded like thunder in his ears. His memories flashed. Cold alien hands, cruel faces, the word defective whispered again and again. He had escaped them once. He would not go back. They reached the surface through an emergency hatch. The colony was chaos. Fires burning, humans running for cover, alien soldiers marching through the smoke. They were tall, silver-skinned, their armor glowing with blue energy. One of them raised a scanner. It beeped once. Target located. Evan grabbed Kale's arm. Go, Kale hesitated. No, they want me. If I run, they'll destroy everything. Evan turned to him, eyes fierce. You are not their mistake, Kale. You are my purpose. Suddenly, a blast hit the ground near them, throwing them back. Dust and fire filled the air. Evan shielded Kale with his body, coughing hard. Run, he shouted again. Kale's voice cracked. Not without you. The alien soldiers advanced, their leader stepping forward. His voice was metallic and cruel. You cannot protect him, human. He is a failed experiment, a danger to all species. Evan rose slowly, aiming his blaster, though he knew it was useless. You're wrong, he said. The only danger I see is your arrogance. The alien raised his weapon, but before he could fire, a shockwave burst from behind Evan. Kyle stood tall, his eyes blazing bright gold. Energy pulsed from his hands, rippling through the air like liquid light. The alien soldiers staggered back, shouting in confusion. Their armor glitched. Their weapons failed. Evan stared in awe. Kale, what are you doing? Kale's voice trembled, but his words were steady. Protecting my family. He spread his arms wide and the energy exploded outward, a wave of blue fire that tore through the sand, flipping ships and scattering metal. The air burned bright, lighting the whole desert like a second sun. For a moment, even the stars seemed to hold their breath. When the dust settled, the alien ships were in ruins. The soldiers fled, retreating into the sky. But Kale fell to his knees, exhausted. His body glowed faintly, cracks of energy crawling up his skin. Evan ran to him. Kale, stay with me. Kale looked up weakly. They'll come back, Evan is stronger. They won't stop. Evan held him close. Then they'll learn what it means to face humans who don't give up. Above them, the alien ships vanished into the dark, leaving only silence and smoke behind. But the message had already spread across the stars. The defective was alive. And now, the galaxy knew that a human had defied the Xyrath Empire to protect him. The hunt had just begun. But so had the legend. The desert was silent after the storm. The alien ships had retreated, but the sky still glowed faintly blue, the mark of Kale's power. Dr. Evan Cole stood beside the boy, watching smoke rise from the ruins. His body ached, his lungs burned, but his eyes were alive with something new and pride. Kyle, he whispered, kneeling beside him, you saved us. Kale looked weak, trembling, the light fading from his skin. I didn't mean to hurt them. I just wanted them to stop. Evan placed a hand on his shoulder. You didn't hurt them, son. You stopped monsters from destroying innocent people. That's what heroes do. Kale blinked, confused by the word hero. No one had ever called him that before. All his life he had been a defect, a mistake, a face unworthy of mercy. But now this human, the man who had defied the galaxy, saw something different in him. And for the first time, Kale began to believe it too. But far above, in the cold silence of space, the Xyrath flagship was watching. Admiral Savar, tall, ruthless, his skin shining like steel, stared at the hologram of the destroyed ships. His voice was sharp. That human protected the defect, and the defect unleashed a forbidden energy. Find them. I want both alive. Another alien officer bowed. Alive, sir? Savar's eyes gleamed. Yes, alive, so they can watch their world burn. Down on Mars' edge, Evan was already preparing. He knew they would return, and not just to capture Kale, but to erase everything. He had seen this before. The Council didn't forgive defiance. He turned his home into a fortress. The walls became shields, the drones became soldiers, and the old mining cannons were brought back online. The colony's people, the same ones who once called Evan a madman, now came to him for guidance. Those ships, one man said, they'll destroy everything. Evan nodded. Then we stand together, because if we don't, they'll take everything we are. Another woman asked, all this for one alien boy? Evan's answer was simple. No, for what he stands for. In the following days, Kale recovered slowly. He watched Evan build defenses and repair drones, trying to understand the human spirit, this strange force that made weak creatures defy impossible odds. Humans didn't have wings or claws or great energy like his people, yet somehow they stood taller than any empire he had known. At night, Kale would sit outside looking at the stars. They won't stop, Evan, he said quietly. They will come with an army. Evan joined him, setting down 2 cups of synthetic coffee. Then we give them a reason to remember Earth's name. Kale tilted his head. Earth's name? Evan smiled. Humanity. We fight for that word. Days later, the ground shook again. The sky darkened with hundreds of alien ships. The Zyreth fleet had returned. Their message echoed across the colony. Surrender the defect and the human who harbors him. Your resistance will only bring destruction. Evan stood on the radio tower and answered with calm defiance. You call him a defect, but he has more heart than your entire empire. You call yourselves gods, but you fear a child. You think we'll surrender because we're small? You have no idea what humans do for family. The broadcast spread across every channel. Humans everywhere heard his words. Some wept, some shouted. And when the alien ships began to descend, the colony was ready. The first wave hit hard. Explosions rocked the desert. Drones flew through the smoke, firing plasma bursts. Evan commanded from the control tower, his voice strong despite the chaos.
Hold the perimeter!
Keep the shields up. Kale joined the fight, standing on the front line, his body glowing faintly again. He raised his hands, summoning the energy he feared. Lightning poured from his palms, striking enemy drones mid-air. He could feel his pulse sync with the rhythm of battle, each heartbeat louder than the next. And with each blast, his fear turned to resolve. But then the Zyreth flagship entered the atmosphere. Its shadow covered the colony like a dark sun. Admiral Savar's voice thundered through the comms. Human, you cannot win. You fight against a galaxy, Evan replied without hesitation. Then the galaxy will remember that humans never bow. A blinding beam of energy fired from the flagship, slamming into the colony's shields. The ground split. Buildings fell. Evan was thrown back, hitting the ground hard. Kale! He shouted through the smoke. Kale turned, eyes glowing brighter than ever. He saw Evan, bleeding, barely moving. Something inside him snapped. All the pain, all the memories, all the cruelty of his kind, as it erupted like fire inside his chest. Blue energy exploded around him, shaking the desert. His voice echoed through the storm. You left me to die because I was different. But this human gave me life. You call me defective, but you will remember me as free. He lifted his hands and the sky turned white. Alien ships twisted and fell, engines bursting in waves of light. The ground shook as the power surged through Kale like a storm too great for one body. Evan, half-conscious, looked up and whispered, That's my boy. When the dust cleared, only silence remained. Half the alien fleet was gone. The others fled back to orbit, their signals broken, their pride shattered. Kyle stood in the center of the ruins, breathing hard. His glow faded, leaving him pale and trembling. He looked at Evan, who was lying nearby, injured but alive. Kale rushed to him, falling to his knees. Evan, stay with me. Evan smiled weakly. You did it, Kale. You showed them what humanity means. Tears rolled down Kale's face, shimmering like liquid light. They'll come again, he whispered. Evan nodded. Then we'll stand again. That's what humans do. We stand, even when the stars fall. The two sat in the dust, A man and an alien boy surrounded by smoke and silence. Above them, the Zyreth flagship limped away, leaving behind only fear and a story. A story that would soon echo across the galaxy. The story of a human who stood against an empire, and an alien child who discovered that the greatest power in the universe wasn't perfection, it was love. The battlefield was silent. The smoke had faded, and the stars above Mars' edge shone through again, cold, distant, and watching. The colony lay in ruins, half buried in red dust and broken metal, but in the center of that destruction stood two survivors, Kale and Dr. Evan Cole, the human and the alien who had just defied an empire. Evan lay weak on the sand, his uniform torn, blood staining his hands. He looked up at Kyle, the boy he once found in a wreckage, now standing tall amidst chaos, glowing faintly like a living star. Kale knelt beside him, his voice shaking. "You're hurt." Evan gave a tired smile. "Takes more than a few explosions to stop me." But his voice trembled, betraying the truth. He was fading fast. Kale's hands glowed as he tried to heal him, but he didn't know how. His energy was wild, a storm inside him that he could barely control. Evan placed a weak hand over Kale's. "It's okay. You did enough." Kale shook his head. "No, I didn't save you. Not yet." Tears of silver rolled down his cheeks, landing softly on Evan's arm, and where they fell, the wounds began to close, faint light spreading through his skin. Kale gasped, realizing the energy inside him wasn't just power. It was life itself. Far above, the Zyreth flagship drifted in orbit, broken but not defeated. Admiral Savar watched the chaos below with disbelief. The defect should not have survived that surge. "No being could," an officer replied nervously. "His energy readings are beyond measurement, sir. He's evolving." Savar's expression turned cold. "Then destroy the planet before he becomes something we can't control." On the surface, Kale felt the tremor before anyone else. His head lifted. "They're going to fire again." Evan tried to stand but fell. "Then it's over." Kyle looked at him, his golden eyes burning bright. "No, not over. Not while you live." He turned toward the sky, spreading his arms wide. The glow around him intensified, brighter and brighter until it hurt to look at him. His voice echoed through the wind. "You wanted me erased. But I was made for something greater." A pulse of light burst from his body, shooting upward, a wave of energy that tore through the atmosphere. The alien fleet's weapons flickered, failing mid-charge. Power conduits melted, systems screamed. The flagship shook violently as blue light wrapped around it like a chain. Admiral Savar shouted, "Impossible!" "What is he doing?" The officer's voice cracked. "He's rewriting our systems." Kale's consciousness reached beyond his body. He could feel the machines, the circuits, the cold metal minds that had once called him broken. Now they obeyed him. He wasn't just energy. He was evolution. On the ground, Evan watched in awe, his eyes reflecting the swirling light in the sky. "Kyle," he whispered, "you're controlling their fleet." Kyle's voice was distant, layered, part human, part cosmic. "They built me to be perfect, but they didn't understand what perfection means." Evan called out, "Kale, come back to me. Don't lose yourself." Kale's glow trembled. His voice softened. "I won't. I finally know who I am." The blue storm in the sky burst outward, spreading through the stars. The alien ships turned on one another, their weapons falling silent. Some powered down completely. Others simply floated harmless, like sleeping giants. Kale's body shuddered. He was giving everything he had to protect the man who gave him a home. The Zyreth admiral screamed orders, but it was too late. The fleet was lost, enslaved by the very creation they had discarded. Kale lowered his arms. The light around him began to fade. The sky cleared. Silence returned. He stumbled back, weak, his skin pale, the glow gone from his veins. Evan rushed forward, catching him. "Easy, son, easy." Kale breathed slowly. "I stopped them. But I don't know for how long." Evan smiled faintly. "Long enough. You just saved a planet." Kyle's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were warm. "They'll call me a monster now?" Evan shook his head. "No, Kale, they'll call you a miracle." A breeze passed through the ruins, carrying red dust and the smell of ozone. For the first time since the crash, Kale looked at his reflection in a piece of shattered glass. The scars on his face shimmered faintly, no longer ugly. They glowed with soft blue light. He touched his cheek and whispered, "Maybe." They were never flaws. That night, Evan and Cale sat together on the sand, staring at the stars. The sky was quiet again, but they both knew the peace wouldn't last. The galaxy had seen something it could not explain. A defective child who commanded the energy of gods. Evan broke the silence. "You know what comes next, don't you?" Cale nodded slowly. "They'll send the council." Evan smiled, tired but proud. "Then we'll show them what being human means." Kyle looked up at the stars, his golden eyes reflecting the infinite sky. "Human," he repeated softly as if testing the word. Then he smiled, small, gentle, and full of light. "It feels right." Above them, broken ships drifted silently in orbit. Their black hulls glimmered faintly in the starlight, reminders of a battle that should never have been possible. The boy once called defective had done what entire fleets could not. He had stopped a war. He had saved a world, and he had done it not with hate, but with love. But far away in the deep halls of the Galactic Council, ancient eyes turned toward the small red planet. They had heard the whispers, and the judgment of the galaxy was coming. The war was over, but the silence that followed was heavier than any explosion. Mars Edge was quiet again. The fires had gone out. The colony still stood, scarred but alive. Above it, broken alien ships drifted like fallen stars, silent witnesses to something impossible, the moment a defective child rewrote the laws of power. Days passed before Cale woke again. He lay in Evan's small lab, surrounded by soft light and the hum of healing machines. His body was weak, his skin pale, but his heart still beat strong. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was Evan sitting beside him, asleep in a chair, head resting on folded arms. Kyle smiled faintly. "You didn't leave me." Evan stirred, blinking awake. "Wouldn't know how." He grinned tiredly. "You scared the stars out of me, kid." Cale's voice was soft, almost human. "Did we win?" Evan looked out the small window at the calm desert. "We survived. That's better than winning." But peace was short-lived. A transmission came from deep space and from the Galactic Council itself. Their message was cold and final. "To the human colony known as Mars Edge, you have violated galactic law. The being you shelter is an illegal creation, dangerous to all life. Surrender him immediately for disposal." Evan's fists clenched. "Disposal," he muttered. "That's what they call life they don't understand." Cale stood, weak but determined. "If I go with them, they'll let you live." Evan looked at him sharply. "You think I care about living without you?" Cale's eyes shimmered. "You shouldn't fight the galaxy for me." Evan smiled faintly. "Son, I'm not fighting for you. I'm fighting because of you." He turned to his desk and began typing furiously. Cale watched, confused. "What are you doing?" "Sending a message," Evan said. "If they want to judge you, let them see who you really are." He activated the old communication tower Cale once repaired, the same one that had nearly betrayed them long ago. But this time it would tell the truth. Cale hesitated. "They'll hear it across the systems." "That's the point," Evan replied. "Let the whole galaxy listen." He turned to Kyle. "Say what's in your heart." Kyle stepped forward, his golden eyes glowing softly. He looked at the blinking light, unsure at first, then spoke slowly. Not as a soldier, not as an experiment, but as a living being finding his voice. "My name is Cale. My creators called me defective. They said I wasn't beautiful enough, not perfect enough, so they left me to die. But a human and a man with no power, no army, no reason, and found me. He saw something my own kind never did. He saw worth." His voice grew stronger, filled with emotion that reached beyond words. "They call me dangerous, but the only danger I know is hatred, the kind that destroys anything it doesn't understand. This human taught me love, and from that love I found power, not to kill, but to protect." Evan stepped beside him, silent but proud, as Cale continued. "If perfection means cruelty, then I choose imperfection. If beauty means obedience, then I choose freedom. I am Cale of Mars Edge, and I will not hide what I am anymore." Evan uploaded the transmission to every open frequency. It spread like wildfire, from the mining moons to the royal stations, across fleets and markets and cities. Billions heard it. Billions saw the boy with golden eyes standing beside a human who looked more proud than any emperor. On planets far away, children whispered his name. In alien courts, leaders watched in silence. And on the Zyrith homeworld, even those who had called him a defect lowered their eyes in shame. Within hours, the council's network filled with voices, not of anger, but of awakening. Messages poured in. He speaks truth. Why destroy what you fear? The human was right. Worth isn't born, it's seen. The council, for the first time in centuries, hesitated. They could silence one man. They could destroy one planet. But they could not silence an idea that had already reached the hearts of millions. Back on Mars' edge, Evan shut down the transmitter. The room was quiet again. He turned to Kale and smiled softly. Well, now the galaxy knows your name. Kyle looked at him with tears in his eyes. They'll still come. Evan nodded. Maybe, but next time they won't come as hunters. They'll come as witnesses. Outside, dawn broke across the red desert. The first light of morning touched the ruins and the scars of battle and turned them golden. Kale stepped out into that light, breathing the cold air, feeling warmth spread through his chest. He wasn't hiding anymore. He wasn't broken. He wasn't alone. Evan walked beside him, his arm around Kale's shoulders. You know, he said quietly, you're the first alien in history to teach humans what it means to be human. Kale smiled, a small, peaceful smile. Maybe I'm not the only one who was saved. As the sun rose higher, the camera of fate pulled back, showing the small red world under the endless sky, glowing softly like a heart beating in the dark, and across the galaxy, a new legend began, of the boy once abandoned for being ugly, and the human who saw his true worth. Because sometimes the universe doesn't change through war or power. It changes when someone chooses to love what others throw away.